nanoparticles. My name is Hui Sun from Ningxia University, located in Ningxia City, which is a beautiful city in the west of China. There are three parts in my presentation. Firstly, I will introduce the structure, features, applications of bowlshaped nanoparticles. Then I will share our recent progress on the preparation and controlling over the opening size of bowlshaped nanoparticles by the strategy of polymer self-assembly. At last, I will introduce the UV-induced shape transformation of bowlshaped nanoparticles. So, bowlshaped nanoparticles are one of the hollow structures with an interior hole and an opening on the surface, as shown in the SEM and TM images, so which is therefore an opening through structure. Due to the unique structure features of bowlshaped nanoparticles, different sized cargoes, including large-sized cargoes such as nanoparticles, could be effectively loaded in the interior hole of bowlshaped nanoparticles. Recently, we are preparing a review article about bowlshaped nanoparticles. In this review article, we summarize the design principle, preparation methods, and applications of bowlshaped nanoparticles. Firstly, in order to obtain the structure of bowlshaped nanoparticles, we need to create a cavity in the sphere. If the cavity located in the center of the sphere, then we can obtain closed hollow structures. If the cavity does not located in the center of the sphere, it will move to the thinner part of the sphere, and the break or collapse of the thinner part leads to the formation of bowlshaped nanoparticles. Actually, there are mainly four methods to prepare bowlshaped nanoparticles, that are swelling and freezing drying of polymeric nanoparticles, emulsion polymerization, and the self-assembly of amphiphilic polymers, as well as the template-assisted method. As well, the bowlshaped nanoparticles have shown potential applications in drug delivery, cancer therapy, catalysis, water remediation, and energy storage. The polymer self-assembly is defined as the process of spontaneously ordered aggregation of macromolecules through weak interaction forces and their synergistic effects to form assemblies with specific sizes, structure, and functions. As shown in the schematic illustration, linear polymers can self-assemble into spheres, worms, or vesicles by different methods, such as solvent switch method and the solvothermal method. The pioneering study of the preparation of bowlshaped nanoparticles was reported by Eisenberg and co-workers. They synthesized amphiphilic tree block copolymer, which can self-assemble into bowlshaped nanoparticles, and they proposed the formation mechanism and the inner structure of bowlshaped nanoparticles. Recently, Chen and co-workers prepared stacked bowlshaped nanoparticles by taking advantage of the hydrogen bonding of polystyrene and polypyridine. But there is still a challenge in this field. The precise control over the size of openings and interiors holes of bowlshaped nanoparticles is still hard to achieve. So we proposed we designed and synthesized the amphiphic Homer polymers with isobenzene pendants and amino hydroxyl group in the side chain, which can provide hydrogen bonding and peptide stacking during self-assembly, and which leads to the formation of bowl-shaped nanoparticles. With the increase of molecular weight of the Homer polymer, we found that the opening of the size of the openings of the bowl-shaped nanoparticles gradually increased. So firstly, we determine the hydrodynamic diameter of the bowl-shaped nanoparticles by DLS and TEM. In the TEM images, we can find that with a very low molecular weight of the Homer polymer, compound micelles were formed, and with the increase of the molecular weight, an opening appeared on the surface of the compound micelles, and the size of which increased with the molecular weight of the Homer polymer. And we also use UV absorption spectra and FTIR to determine the existence of hydrogen bonding and peptide interaction during self-assembly. Also, different from symmetry nanostructures, bowl-shaped nanoparticles will show different morphology in TEM images when they located at different angles. So we present 5 typical morphologies of bowl-shaped nanoparticles in TEM image. Later, we quantitatively analyze the size of the openings and the interior holes by measuring the electron density profile. And we found actually the width of the openings and the depth of the holes shows a linear relationship with the molecular weight of the Homer polymer. So we propose the formation mechanism of bowl-shaped nanoparticles. As shown in this picture, with the addition of water to the solution of the Homer polymer, preformed spheres were firstly formed, which composed of polymers, solvents, and water. With the further addition of water, there is a hard skin formed on the surface of the preformed sphere, which prevents the homogeneous shrinkage of the spheres. Otherwise, compound micelles were formed. With the extraction of organic solvent from the interior of the preformed spheres, the Homer polymer went through phase separation. So small bubbles filled with water and solvents were formed, which then coalesced to form a large bubble, also filled with water and solvents. If the large bubble located in the center of the sphere, then closed hollow structures were formed. If the bubble is not located in the center of the sphere, it will move to the surface of the sphere due to the asymmetry forces. So, with the further addition of water, the collapse of the thinner part leads to the formation of bowl-shaped nanoparticles. Fortunately, we monitored the self-assembly process and captured the intermediates of bowl-shaped nanoparticles, which further confirmed that our proposed mechanism. In order to prove that our proposed mechanism can be extended to other polymers, we designed and synthesized 3 different polymers, P1, P2, and P3. During the self-assembly process, P1 only can provide hydrogen bonding interaction, and P2 can provide pi-pi interaction, and P3 can provide both of hydrogen bonding and pi-pi interaction. So P1 and P2 can only self-assemble into compound methyls, and P3 can self-assemble into bowl-shaped nanoparticles, which confirms that our proposed mechanism can be extended to other polymers. They can provide both of hydrogen bonding and pi-pi interaction during self-assembly. Then we thought that if we could co-self-assembly of a small molecule and polymers to induce the formation of bowl-shaped nanoparticles, as shown in this paper, we used a short peptide which can provide hydrogen bonding and pi-pi interaction. If the short peptide co-self-assemble with the Homer polymer, bowl-shaped nanoparticles were formed. If without the short peptide, the Homer polymer can only form solid nanospheres. Also, with the increase of the weight percentage of the short peptide, the opening size of the bowl-shaped nanoparticles also increased. Very recently, we systematically investigated the influence parameters on the opening size and preparation of bowl-shaped nanoparticles, such as temperature, initial concentration, pH value, and the addition of ferrous ions. And we found that with the increase of initial concentration, firstly, solid nanospheres were formed, and then bombs were formed. With the further increasing of the initial concentration, bowl-shaped nanoparticles were formed. Besides, the effect of temperature on the opening size of bowl-shaped nanoparticles were also studied. We found that with the increase of temperature, the width and the depth of the size of openings increased with the temperature. In addition, the pH values of the solution also influenced the formation of the morphology of bowl-shaped nanoparticles. We found that with the decrease of pH values of the solution, the interior hull of the bowl-shaped nanoparticles increased, and the size of the opening is becoming smaller. Finally, we studied the effect of ferrous ions on the self-assembly behavior of this polymer, because the ferrous ions can coordinate with the bipyridine group. So with the addition of ferrous ions, bowl-shaped nanoparticles transformed to membrane-like structures such as polymer vesicles, because with the coordination of ferrous ions with the pyridine groups, the hydrophilicity of the polymer dramatically increased. As we prepared bowl-shaped nanoparticles with precisely controlled openings, so we saw that if we can induce the shape transformation of bowl-shaped nanoparticles by the transit isomerization of isobenzene pendants. Then we design this homopolymer, which can self-assemble into bowl-shaped nanoparticles. However, during the self-assembly process, we thought that the isobenzene pendants arranged irregularly, so the formed nanoballs are amorphous. With the exposure of UV light, the trans-isobenzene will transform to cis-isobenzene, which results in the increase of the hydrophilicity of isobenzene pendants, also the hydrophilicity of the homopolymer. So bowl-shaped nanoparticles disassembled into polymer fragments under UV irradiation. But when turn off the UV irradiation, the cis-isobenzene will transform to trans-isobenzene. So the hydrophobicity of the homopolymer is increased, which induces the reassembly of the polymers to form ellipsoid. Interestingly, we found that the ellipsoids are crystalline. We suppose that during the reassembly of the homopolymer, the isobenzene pendants regularly arranged to induce the formation of crystalline structure. At the very beginning, we prepared a compound and bowl-shaped nanoparticles with precisely controlled opening size by changing the initial concentrations, and studied the pipette interaction during self-assembly. When exposed to UV light, the bowl-shaped nanoparticles firstly swollen and then disassembled to form polymeric segments with the elongation of UV exposure. When the exposure time is 5,400 seconds, we found that all of the bowl-shaped nanoparticles disassembled and only irregular aggregates were formed. However, when we turn off the UV light, we found that the polymeric segments reassembled to form small-sized ellipsoids with a extension of time. The ellipsoids grown to form large-sized ellipsoids, and we found that the ellipsoids are crystalline. Finally, I would like to thank my cooperators, Professor Du, Professor Fan, Professor Zhu, and Dr. Jiang, and also my students. Thank you all for your listening.